Brett here from Two Deep Sons of Saturday. Commanders correspondent. I popped in from time to time on certain things, such as Memory Lane. I was on the draft last week talking Commanders with Pete and Sam. I'm here to tell you guys about Jaylin Lane to the Commanders. A very exciting pick. I think it was a steal realistically for the Commanders to get him in the fourth round, especially with the wide receivers going off the board before him. And we're going to go through, we'll talk about his time at Tech, his combine, which was really, really good, and we'll get into why I think he's going to be a great fit for the Commanders and going to next season, how he can be an immediate help for Cliff Kingsbury, Jaden Daniels, and then a lot of new players that are going to be on the offense. Jaylin Lane is not much introduction needed for the Hokie fans here. Came from Middle Tennessee State. His sophomore year, had 940 receiving yards when Tech picked him out of the portal. He was known for burning Miami in that big upset, and it was a really exciting pickup for us, especially from a weapon standpoint. His 2023 season, 538 yards, 6 touchdowns. He brought the explosive ability that we felt like we needed, especially on other weapons such as jet sweeps, pitches, all sorts of things. He really was an electric player, especially in the slot, that really helped that offense have success with drones in the back half of the 2023 season. As the 2024 season rolls around, I think he had some nagging injuries the whole year. He had less yardage, less touchdowns, a little more rushing yardage. He actually played in the backfield when we were real thin at running back, if any of you guys remember. I think his season was a lot left to be desired. I think it just had to do with a lot of injury. I think especially towards the back half of the season, he was just not 100%. I think the UVA game was the closest he had been to being healthy, and he burned right through the defense for the deepest pass all year from Pop Watson. I think that goes to show where his abilities are. He's also a really good punt returner and not really kick returner. He's not really into running full speed and potentially getting hurt. I think that's just from his size standpoint, not his strength. But a punt returner, I think he's really effective. I think, and we'll go into that a little bit for the needs of the Commanders. His combine was, incredible. He had a 9.68 RAS, which ranked 112th out of over 3,000 participants between 1987 and 2025. That's pretty special. I think his measurables outside of his height and his weight, which obviously were graded poor just because he's a little on the shorter side, a little lighter, but his 40-yard dash, 4.34, ranked among the best at the combine this year. 20-yard split, 2.53, 10-yard split, 1.53. That's really fast, really, really fast. 3-cone, 6.75 seconds, shuttle, 4.12. Vertical, 40 inches. 40 inches. Think about Jaylin Lane's height, 40-inch vertical. That's really impressive. That's in the elite category. Broad jump also was in the elite category. I think it really, he really shined at the combine. He's fully healthy. He had been training, I know, and getting back healthy, especially after the season had ended. I really think he's going to have some success with some of the other characteristics that he has. He's obviously we know his deep threat, great line speed. Jaden Daniels is going to be able to throw him the ball. Just let him go and let him run. Terry McLaurin, he is more of a tactician. He's obviously got the speed and the strength, but he's able, Terry's the guy, when you need a play, that's the play to happen. Adding Debo this year was a big factor. People, question Debo's health, his age, is he going to be as effective? Obviously, he's another weapon, one more weapon that the Commanders didn't have last year. So I think, he's obviously going to be a help. What they were missing was, they don't have a slot guy. Zacchaeus is gone. I think it's just, they need a guy that can blow the top off the defense, especially a guy that's not your wide receiver 1 or 2. Obviously, your ace corner is going to be on McLaurin. Debo's going to have a bigger corner on him a lot of times, and smaller he's going to have bigger corners on him most times because of his size. And people know he's a threat, so, double teams are going to come to him and Terry. They need a third guy that can really, scheme up a play and, get the top off the defense. Dimey Brown they tried to get him to be that guy. His catching ability was not great. That's where Jaylin Lane really shines, as his catching ability is among the elite category, especially at the combine this year. They call him a natural hands catcher. He understands how to get the ball in his hands and how to keep, keep the ball in his hands and protect it. Obviously, we know his ability to make defenders miss. after he gets the ball. I could see definitely Kingsbury using him in schemes and underneath routes, 5, 6 yard underneath routes, try and, get him open, get him in space, outside of over top of the defense. We know Kingsbury's been a scheme master last year. Somehow taking that offense to 12 wins is pretty impressive, I think, all in itself. Yeah, I think, he's going to put him in soft spots in the zone and zone coverage, just to get him, 5 or 6 yards and try to make a guy miss or a couple guys miss, get those first downs. I really think Lane is going to excel there. A big factor people didn't really think about, I think, until later was, when Zacchaeus departed from the team, from the Commanders. I think, Lane being a punt return potential, I think, is a really big factor for the Commanders. They have a guy now that they know has experience back there and can take him to the house like he did last year. He took one against Marshall. He's got the ability to, really get some extra, get you in some good field position, I would say. Luke McCaffrey on the kick return especially was great last year. He's not a punt return guy. And I think, that will be really helpful to special teams, and Lane will be an asset for there for sure. Oh, also Jamison Crowder, totally forgot. He's gone as well, so they need just another electric guy, and Lane provides that guy that can really be your quick, lightning receiver up and down the field, across the field, wherever you need him. I really also think Kingsbury's going to scheme up some sweeps for him, jet sweeps, things like that. That's becoming a lot more popular, especially you're seeing with the Chiefs when they're using Xavier Worthy. I think, you're going to see Kingsbury start using that with Lane. I think, I think he's going to be a really good fit, and I really think day one, you're going to see some production out of Lane at the Commanders. I think it's a Kingsbury guy, utility player, and that's kind of like what Debo was, but Debo's just, he's towards the end of his career, but I think, he's going to be, effective, but Lane is really going to be the young guy that's really going to come in and be a really effective player for the Commanders.